Welcome, everybody. This is the North Fair Oaks Community Council meeting corresponding to the month of June 2019. If we can get started with roll call, Mitzi, thank you.
Of course. Chair Everardo Rodriguez.
Here?
Vice Chair Beatriz Cerrillo.
Oh, she's walking in, actually.
Councilmember Rosario Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Linda Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Rosaura Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Blair Whitney.
Here.
Councilmember Jennifer Ruiz.
Here.
Youth Member Frances Santos.
Here.
Alternative Youth Member Esmeralda Rosales.
Thank you, Mitzi. If there's any public comment, anyone may speak up to 2 minutes on any topic not on the agenda tonight. If you wish to do so, please fill out a speaker slip. It'll be given to you by the entrance at the table, and the council may not discuss or take any action on items not on the agenda tonight. Do we have any public comment?
We do. We have two. Marcia Cohen.
Is this on? Yes. Good evening. My name's Marcia Cohen, and I've lived in North Fair Oaks for about 30 years. My comments to you tonight pertain to renewed efforts on the part of Cargill and their luxury home developer, DMB Associates, to build another massive project in our backyard on the salt ponds in Redwood City. I'm a member of a group of local residents called Redwood City Neighbors United. In 2009, we began working closely with other like-minded individuals, other public officials, and a number of environmental groups, most notably Save the Bay, to oppose Cargill's original saltworks plan to put 12,000 homes in the salt ponds. Back then, I spoke in front of this council about the perils to our community of such a massive development. Finally, in 2012, after years of public opposition, Redwood City officials halted Cargill's efforts. Now, Cargill and DMB are back and planning to build on the salt ponds again. It was the wrong place for development in 2012, and it's still the wrong place now. Redwood City Mayor Ian Bain recently stated his opposition to seeing the salt ponds rezoned for housing and prefers to see Cargill donate the land for wetlands restoration. Other public officials have stated their support for Mayor Bain's position, including Supervisor Warren Slocum. Redwood City Neighbors United supports Mayor Bain in opposition to developing in the Cargill salt ponds, and because we all know that Redwood City should not be building in the bay. We're committed to keeping this area as open space for the benefit of local, as well as all Bay Area residents and for future generations. I'm in contact with Mitzi to come back before this council in the near future with a more detailed presentation and the opportunity for discussion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cohen.
Mark Moulton.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and council members. My name is Mark Moulton. I'm the project manager for a renovation that's in your neighborhood that's going to require a use permit. I've been working for many years for the Ricus Center for Human Enhancement at 3455 Edison Way. Nominally, the address is in Menlo Park, but actually we sit right on the edge of a street that's divided between Fair Oaks and Menlo Park. We're at 5th and Edison near the railroad tracks there, and our building is physically an exception to the current buildings on the block. You may be familiar with the other buildings. They're steel reinforced, tilt-up office-type buildings and warehouses, where our building is made out of 6 steel Butler-type buildings that were built between 1947 and 1954. After 18 years as renters, in 2017, we were able to purchase the building. I'm here to introduce tonight our coming presentation of the renovation project, which is scheduled for your July meeting. We've assembled a team that is at work doing geotechnical work, survey, hazardous materials analysis, structural engineering, and architectural concepts. We're excited tonight to introduce our ongoing programs to you. Our nonprofit has served thousands of youth since 1999 in this location, and for 20 years prior to that at other locations. Our programs serve a large east-west neighborhood of San Mateo County, including East Palo Alto, Bellhaven, Fair Oaks, Redwood City, Menlo Park, Atherton, Woodside, and Portola Valley. We serve people of all backgrounds, ages, cultures, races, incomes, and levels of ability, from professional athletes and musicians to people who discover archery or wheelchair rugby for the first time when they arrive. Our programs include athletic fitness, nature awareness, creative arts, and community service. We intend that our uses of this building will be unchanged after the renovation. We were advised by the planning department to secure a use permit simply because our renovation will be extensive. The purpose
I'm sorry to interrupt, sir, but your time is up.
Thank you.
And it sounds like you have a lengthier presentation.
No, we certainly do, and we'll bring it back, and I had about 2 sentences more, so that's perfect. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Thanks very much. Is that it? Okay. Thanks very much. We'll move on to the first item of the night, actually item number 3, the recommendation regarding ordinance to restrict the advertising of alcoholic beverages and cannabis on billboards. And is it the whole county or just North Fair Oaks, just unincorporated areas?
Yes.
Okay, so she will elaborate. Presentation by Edith Cabosley, Program Service Manager, BHRS, and Lisa Osasa, Deputy Director of Community Development, Planning and Building.
Good evening, Chair Rodriguez and members of the council. My name is Edith Cabosley. Tonight, Lisa Osasa from Planning and Building will be here to join me to present to you a language consideration by the Board of Supervisors related to alcohol and cannabis advertising on San Mateo County billboards. I'll start off by giving you some statistics related to alcohol, cannabis, youth use, as well as some impacts that we have seen in the research. In San Mateo County, through the California Healthy Kids Survey, we have found that alcohol and cannabis are the top 2 illicit drugs that are being used by youth in San Mateo County. Alcohol-related emergency room visits in San Mateo County during the last fiscal year, 17-18, made up 3/4 of all AOD-related emergency room visits. Additionally, in 2016, there were 26 accidents in San Mateo County that resulted in deaths or injuries in the county in which the driver was under 21 years old and had been drinking. Research also shows that exposure to advertising increases the likelihood that a young person will use alcohol and cannabis. And in a survey that we conducted earlier this year in San Mateo County, we found that parents and teens who responded to the survey, those who have used cannabis are more likely to have seen an ad related to cannabis and are able to cite cannabis sales businesses in their neighborhood or when they see advertising in the community. So the purpose of a billboard ordinance would be to help reduce the illegal consumption and purchase of alcoholic beverages, cannabis, and cannabis products by children and minors by limiting their exposure to the advertising of alcoholic beverages, cannabis, and cannabis products on billboards near certain youth-sensitive facilities. The proposed ordinance would only regulate billboards in unincorporated San Mateo County. It would prohibit billboard ads that promote alcohol or cannabis within 1,000 feet of child care centers, libraries, playgrounds, public parks, or schools. In the process of considering language for this ordinance, there were certain tasks and considerations that we undertook. One of them was to identify and map all the billboards located in unincorporated San Mateo County. We identified and mapped the youth-sensitive facilities, the child care centers, the libraries, schools, public parks, and playgrounds. We determined a reasonable buffer zone around those child-sensitive areas by having the ordinance proposed to restrict alcohol and cannabis ads on billboards within those zones. And the ordinance also considered allowing alcohol and cannabis ads to continue outside of those zones. There were 34 billboards that we canvassed in unincorporated San Mateo County. 24 of them are located in North Fair Oaks, so the vast majority of those billboards you will notice are in North Fair Oaks area. 8 are located in the Harbor Industrial area near Belmont, and 2 are located on the hillside area near Daly City. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa with the mapping that her program has done.
Thank you, Edith. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lisa Awazasa. I'm the Deputy Director for Planning and Building. We were asked to assist Edith and her team in preparing the ordinance, and specifically Planning and Building's role in this was to provide GIS services to do the mapping that was needed to craft the ordinance. So here, I'll just explain the mapping here a little bit, and then we'll go to North Fair Oaks, the map of North Fair Oaks, which is what I'm sure you're most interested in. But we mapped the youth facilities that we've listed, and then looked at which billboards would fall within a 500-foot radius or a 1,000-foot radius. And we wanted to make sure, because the consumption of alcohol and cannabis are legal activities for adults, we want to make sure that we're not, from a legal standpoint, prohibiting all billboards in the unincorporated area from running those sorts of ads. But we did want to get the ones that were closest to youth facilities. So that was part of the analysis, to make sure that there were at least a number of them that would be still able to run those sorts of ads. So that, you see the blue sort of ring there is the limit of the 1,000-foot buffer around the youth facilities. So, oops. So here we have the map of North Fair Oaks, and the hard copy there on the poster or on the board is there for your, if you want to take a closer look. I know it's a little bit hard to read. What this actually shows, again, sorry, it's a little bit hard to discern, but is that almost all of the billboards in the North Fair Oaks area are within 1,000 feet of a youth facility, a school, a child care center, a public park, a playground. So the bottom line is that if this ordinance does go forward and is adopted by the Board of Supervisors, all but 2 of the billboards in the North Fair Oaks area, those located on, I think it's Bay, there's a couple on Bay that wouldn't be within those zones, but otherwise all of them would be regulated by this ordinance.
Can we ask a question?
Sure.
Lisa, it's hard to, can you zoom in? Or do you have
I don't know if I can.
one of those marker thingies?
Yeah, I wasn't sure I would be able to, which is why we brought the board, so you could actually,
But
if you
I
wanna go up and
actually
look.
downloaded the document, and it's really, can't really read it either.
Yeah, it's hard to,
See where the proliferation is right there? What is that Middlefield?
Yeah, that cluster down the middle.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Middlefield here, the 2 that aren't regulated or would be regulated by the ordinance are up here.
And the Middlefield Road start on the south end, what street is that cross? Do you know, do you have a start and a southern boundary?
Well, the yellow line is the boundary of North Fair Oaks. So it covers the entire area of Middlefield.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you.
sorry, wrong way. So as part of the ordinance, we looked at different strategies for accountability and enforcement. Sorry. One of the first things that we are planning to do is outreach to, there's really only a handful of companies that own and operate the advertisements on the billboards. So we plan to outreach to them and discuss our proposed ordinance with them, get their feedback, and we see that also as a chance to sort of, have them understand what the purpose is behind the ordinance and hopefully have a cooperative relationship with them around this issue. As far if the ordinance is adopted, the plan is for the Behavioral Health and Recovery Services, Edith and her team, to do periodic monitoring of the content on the billboards, and if there is a violation, if they are running those sorts of ads in the areas where they're prohibited, they would then approach the billboard companies and have a discussion with them about that in an effort to try and achieve voluntary compliance. If that isn't successful for some reason, there would be a referral to our Planning and Building Code compliance team for the usual enforcement action that we have for other sorts of land use violations. Also included in the ordinance is a process for a petition for review that would allow for, if there's a change in the land uses, if for example, if a child care center for some reason is no longer operating, a billboard company could petition for a review for us to determine whether or not they're still within the protected area. Likewise, if a new youth facility goes into an area, and they could also petition the department to determine if a billboard near them should now be regulated. In terms of next steps, we're here today to present this to you and get any comments and feedback that you might have and ask for a recommendation to the board. We will, as I mentioned, then go on to engage the billboard companies in a dialogue about the ordinance. We plan to do that later in July. And then the plan is for the Board of Supervisors to consider the ordinance in August, tentatively. So that concludes our presentation, and both of us are available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. If council members have any questions, please go ahead.
Lisa, what's the strategy for the outreach piece to the companies? I mean, what? Well, what are you going to ask?
Well, so there's only, as I said, there's really only a few companies that operate these
what's
billboards.
Like less than 5? Or?
Yeah,
oh,
actually,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a pretty small group.
Okay.
And I think it's really just to kind of part of it's to, we haven't really dialed down in much detail about how this conversation will go, but I think it's about trying to understand, their business model and why they accept the advertisers they do, and to try and figure out now that they understand that the county is concerned about this, is there a way that they can see for just voluntarily, avoid running those sorts of ads in these areas, and hopefully establish a relationship so that we're all on the same page about trying to prohibit these sorts of ads from running near youth facilities.
I would like to suggest that you include alternatives. Okay, what alternatives would they have if they agreed not to publicize alcohol and what is the other piece?
Cannabis.
And cannabis. Just because it's a matter of, I think, appealing to their moral side, but I think it's always good that they have alternatives, possibly through the health department, through healthy communities. They have a lot going with their different programs and strategies. So anyway, I just wanted to suggest that piece is added to it. So it's not just so open-ended, but they have something else to look at.
Yeah. Edith, with the health department, maybe has something to add here on the matter.
So we don't really have control over what billboard companies put on their billboards. What we have noticed since we are in the process of conducting media campaigns is that in general, when we want to put a message up on a billboard, there is a wait list. Our message doesn't go up right away. It has to wait until a slot is open. So it appears that there is a host of opportunities for messages to go up on billboards because ours doesn't go right away when we pay for a billboard to go up. Also, the reality is the health department doesn't have as much in resources as the alcohol industry and presumably the cannabis industry. So it's not something that we could say we're going to replace every billboard with a health department billboard because we just don't have those kinds of resources within the county structure. But the idea of providing them with other ideas of organizations that might be interested. When you drive up and down Middlefield, you'll see a whole host of different types of companies who have billboards up there. And there are a prominent 3 or 4 companies who are there over and over again.
Yeah.
Thank you for the statistics. Those of us that have worked and lived in North Fair Oaks have had this conversation for many years. There seems to have been always a saturation of, alcoholic advertisement in this area as opposed to, quote unquote, the city of Redwood City. And so statistically, now I understand why. Since you said there cannot be restrictions on what the owners can put on the billboard, I would like to include as part of the restrictions, because I see that it's geared toward families and youth, and you have cited schools, parks. I would like to also recommend that you include churches. We have lots of little churches in North Fair Oaks where lots of families and youth attend. And so to put further restrictions, maybe on that end, being that we cannot tell the owner or we have no say on what the owners want to put, but maybe more restrictions need to happen on our end.
Thank you. The ordinance would put the restriction around alcohol and cannabis, but we will also take churches as an idea to consider as part of the language of the ordinance. Thank you.
Go ahead, Blair.
Yeah, I ride my bike and I drive Middlefield, and I honestly couldn't tell you what's on a single billboard. I just came up. I don't read them. I guess it's an important thing that you want to control what's on display. I mean, there's a thing here that children lack the ability to assess and fully analyze information presented through advertising. They're probably being influenced by their cell phones, honestly, more than stuff like that. But is this like a staff thing? I'm curious who generates the potential legislation that comes to us that we need to approve? Is it the health department decided that this is the next stage in the war on moral turpitude and health risk or whatever?
So the language of these types of ordinances already exist. There are other jurisdictions that have implemented these types of ordinances across California and the country. The idea of this ordinance was brought to our attention that community members were expressing concern about billboards and messages on billboards, specifically on Middlefield Road in North Fair Oaks.
I do have a couple of suggestions. Going back to what Linda was asking about what the argument of approach would be to some of these companies advertising, I think that rather than appealing to their, moral wellness, I think it would be more important to rely on health statistics and also socioeconomic statistics that show that underserved and minority communities usually, suffer more when there are addictions, whether it's, alcohol or any other drugs. And I think those could be more powerful, to some of these businesses. Just letting them know that, it is a health concern primarily. And then the other thing, as an alternative for some of the billboard owners, would be to maybe at the same time, if you guys try to talk to some of the nonprofit organizations or the for-profit organizations that are trying to do good in, in our communities, like the Chan Zuckerberg organization, Stanford University, other entities that are trying to sort of invest and be good neighbors, because they may be able to find a reason to advertise, in some of those billboards. So creating that connection with the billboard owners might be a good thing, because then, we might be able to have, positive or different messages on those billboards. And that may give the owners, I guess an alternative, a viable alternative where they can just fill in, whatever economic losses they may foresee.
I'm sorry, through the chair. I would guess that their only motive is economic. So as long as they're going to get some kind of profit, so why would they care what's up there, right? And take some suggestions. Yeah, good. You got some good ideas, I think.
Thank you.
And I did have another question. So for this first presentation, you didn't notify any of the billboard owners that this meeting was going to be taking place. Is that correct?
The Office of Community Affairs did the outreach for this meeting. Our intent was, once we heard from the community, to follow up with the billboard operators.
Okay, I see. Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
To the chair. Yeah, basically it's a comment that I have regarding, I know we intend to restrict, the advertising of the alcohol and cannabis, but I have a question. What the county are doing about the mental health? Because usually alcohol or addictions, there is a lot of mental health behind, like stress, depression. I think we need, to take care of that area also, I don't know, some program. I remember that last year, I think it was, when we have some mental health meeting, and a lot of people came to the meeting, and it was, I think it was very good for the community, but I think we need more, more or some program that's where the families or the children can go when they have, when they need, assistance and wherever they are suffering. Because especially now, paying a lot of rent is cause a lot of stress to the families. and sometimes the parents is so stressful, and then that's affect all, the entire family, including the children. And the children, I think, is the most affected because they don't know how to say this, and sometimes they don't know why the parents are so stressed. So I think we need something like that. I don't know if there is any plan or any program in the future or to do something like this.
Thank you. One of the community partners that we have in our alcohol and other drug prevention program is Jefferson Union High School District and Redwood City 2020. We are right now in the process of taking a look at how the social determinants of health, things like the cost of living, housing, stress, and mental health are impacting people's decisions to use substances. So we know that it isn't just about using a substance. It's a whole lot of factors that contribute to all of that. So thank you for that. It supports the conversations we're having, that this is a bigger issue than just alcohol or cannabis. This is about the environments that we live in.
Thank you. And is there any public comment for this item?
Through the chair, there's two.
All right.
Mary Martinez.
Hello. Good evening, Council. My name is Mary Martinez. I was born and raised here in North Fair Oaks, and I've worked for 38 years, and I've worked in North Fair Oaks for about 20 years, probably even a little more. Just to give you a little bit of background. I was reading the findings as I came in, and I hope all of you guys got a chance to read the findings, because it's just so much more powerful than we probably know or realize. But I'm very happy to see that this is finally coming to our attention, and hopefully that something can be done, because I remember as a child passing by Middlefield Road many times and looking at the billboards and always seeing alcohol up there, and it's not necessary, it shouldn't be up there. And this might be far-fetched, but I don't think the billboard should be up there either in the first place. And if there are, then the county should be responsible with making sure what goes up there and making sure that it's appropriate. Because like we said, this issue is a lot more deeper than we know, and I agree with everything that you guys are saying, that it's more. It's mental health. It's causing a lot of negative effects within our community. And we're all here to work together and make sure that our youth, that our community, that we're all well and we're all striving. And with alcohol and cannabis billboards being up there, that's not helping the effort. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brooks Esser.
Evening, I'm Brooks Esser, North Fair Oaks resident for 35 years now. Actually, I have a two-part question with regard to the proposed ordinance. I'm interested to know whether or not other communities have implemented similar restrictions on billboards advertising alcohol and cannabis. And the second part is if any litigation has resulted from those restrictions, if the billboard companies have taken offense to that and in some way tried litigation as a way to getting around the restrictions.
Thank you.
So unfortunately, our county council that we worked with in crafting the ordinance, Melissa Andrikopoulos, who you all know, was unable to be here this evening. But that was a very important part of the initial steps towards drafting the ordinance, was to look and see what other communities had done. And so there are a handful of other communities in the state of California that have adopted these ordinances. I think the city of Oakland is one, if I remember correctly. The city of Richmond, and I think there might be a couple in Southern California. So there aren't a lot, but there are a few. And my understanding is that at least one of those ordinances has survived a legal challenge. And that was a very important consideration in drafting the ordinance. And as I stated earlier, one of the important points is to make sure that we're not prohibiting, that keeps us on firmer legal ground, is to make sure we're not prohibiting, we're not regulating all of the billboards in the jurisdiction, that we're leaving some of them open for these types of advertisements.
Thank you. And as an added note, or as a side note, I think the rezoning had established something, if I remember correctly, about some of those billboards being replaced, right? Yeah, because there was an issue with, freedom of, I guess, speech or something that.
Yeah, so the billboards in North Fair Oaks, by and large, are legal, non-conforming. So at one point they were legal. They were mostly put up in the 50s and 60s, and they received for the most part, they received the permits that were required at that time. So they are considered legal, but our current ordinances do not allow for any additional billboards. So we consider them non-conforming. They don't conform with the current regulations, but they were at one point legal. I think we have had a number of discussions here with the council about how difficult it is to even though they are non-conforming, to actually require that they be phased out. There is a process that we can follow in our zoning ordinance, but it's extremely difficult. And part of the reason is that it is a freedom of speech issue in terms of the advertising. And so it would take an awful lot of resources, legal and financial, to try and actually remove the billboards. So this is one small thing that we can do to improve the community character and the environment that our kids are in, by focusing specifically on where youth are congregating and controlling the message in those areas. And again, alcohol consumption and cannabis consumption now are legal for adults, so that does deserve a place somewhere, just not near youth centers. So that's kind of the thinking behind the ordinance.
Through the chair, thank you, Lisa. I think it promotes community wellness. It promotes healthy communities, and that's the message the public needs to hear. That's the message the vendors who supply the billboards and get profited from the billboards, they need to hear that message. Thank you.
That's a good point.
Thank you. And this item requires an action from the council. One last thing that I would like to ask Lisa and her team before moving on to a motion would be to consider if there is perhaps a correlation between the number of billboards and the number of liquor licenses being dispensed on this area. Because I know that there are lots of bars and lots of places where alcohol is sold. So perhaps there is a correlation with that.
Yeah. So I think they're separate, actually. I mean, well, we do also have, as I think you all know, for the liquor licenses that are issued by the Alcohol Beverage Control Board, a process here for the North Fair Oaks area that takes into consideration the concentration of bars and restaurants and other liquor stores that already have licenses. And so there is a process where the council can weigh in if there's a new application made for that type of a license. So it's a slightly different process, I mean, in terms of how it's regulated. But you're right, there may be a reason there's a correlation between them.
Thank you. And with that, I can entertain a motion from any of the council members.
I'd like to make a motion that the council recommend the ordinance to restrict advertising of alcoholic beverages and cannabis on billboards.
Is there a second to the motion? We have a second. Mitzi, if you can take roll call.
Okay, I'll commence roll call. Chair Everardo Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Beatriz Cerrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Rosario Gonzalez, Councilmember Linda Lopez,
Yes?
Councilmember Rosaura Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Blair Whitney,
Yes.
Councilmember Jennifer Reese,
Yes.
Youth Member Francis Santos.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. And we will go on to the next item in the agenda, which is the recommendation regarding off-street parking exception to provide 3 converted parking spaces where 4 parking spaces are required on an existing R3 zone parcel located at 264 on 4th Avenue. This presentation will be brought to us by Brian Albini, planner from the Planning and Building Department.
Good evening, Council, Chair. The project before you again, as covered, is the relocation of that existing single-car garage. This home was built on a 6,000 square foot lot in 1939. Currently, the project proposal is to, again, relocate the garage into internal to allow rear access to the property, and along with it, a proposal for an additional unit of 1,186 square feet and a 2-vehicle garage, which will bring the property further in compliance. Currently, there are 4 uncovered spaces in the front yard setback, and they will remain as part of the project proposal. This is currently the aerial imagery of the project. You can see here is the garage that will be located and pushed interiorly to, while this doesn't show it, allow access to the rear. This is the project plan as submitted by the applicant that indicates the reconfiguration of 2 additional parking spaces in the front yard, the existing 2 uncovered spaces, the legal nonconforming original 1-car garage, and then the proposal for 2 covered spaces in the new garage adjacent to unit number 2 for this R3 S5 zoned parcel. This is the elevation that indicate the limits of both the original home and the proposed 1,100 square foot unit number 2 with the compliant parking. Additionally, this is the street view with the reconfiguration from both the rear of the property here and towards the front, showing the relocation of the garage and a new entryway with unit number 2 in the rear. This project is exempt by CEQA for new construction under Class 3. We recommend that the project be approved as it complies with our parking regulations as reasonably as possible. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions from council members? Please
Brian,
go ahead.
where's that tree that you referred to?
Yes.
Where is that?
Let's take a look at there. I know in the pictures it's not really clear. So this tree is remaining.
Okay.
The podocarus that's being removed is actually in the building site. Currently, there are 2 accessory structures. There is a workshop in the rear with a single bathroom, and then an additional unit that will be demoed, and in its place, that unit number 2. That podocarus tree in the rear will be removed for the building site.
Where's their fence? Is it the orange?
Yeah, it's just right in the back. It's really not clear here, but it does extend further back.
Does that overhang to the neighbors?
The tree here?
Yeah.
No, it's clearly within that fence boundary.
And it's not a heritage?
No, it's a 17.5-inch diameter tree.
Okay.
While in fair condition, is within the building envelope of the proposal and the reason why it's being removed. All the other trees on site will require tree protection measures prior to construction. And again, the signifying feature of the property is this redwood, which will be protected during the course of construction.
Were the residents in the perimeter notified of these?
Yes, a 300-foot radius notification was issued on Monday.
Go ahead, Brian.
So this is like an accessory dwelling unit being built?
No, because this is an R3 zone, they are allowed to have 3 separate residential units if they can meet the minimum dwelling size standards. So however, it might be similar to an internal second unit in other lots that are zoned R1. This is a multifamily zoned lot and meets all other zoning criteria aside from the parking requirements, where any unit more than 1 bedroom requires 2 covered spaces. Potentially, this site can accommodate 6 or more vehicles. However, they're not the required 4 covered spaces that would be needed for a project of this type. So I'll refer back to the diagram that kind of indicates only 4 covered spaces are required for a project of this type. However, they don't have the capacity to accommodate those structures and the required covered parking, and that's why the off-street parking exception application was submitted.
Any other questions from council members? This is an item that would require council action as well. Go ahead, Beatrice.
Is this owner the original owner of the property?
I'm unaware of the current ownership history. It wasn't part of the application submittal.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval.
Hold on for a sec. Let me see if there's, I guess if we have no more questions from council members, we need to ask first if there's public comment.
No public comment.
No public comment? Okay. In that case, yes, I can entertain a motion. Blair.
I move that the recommendation regarding off-street parking exception to provide 3 covered parking spaces where 4 parking spaces are required on an existing R3 zoned parcel located at 260 via recommend approval.
Is there a second to the motion? We have a second. Mitzi, if you can take, please, roll call.
Chair Everardo Rodriguez,
Yes?
Vice Chair Beatriz Cerillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Rosario Gonzalez, Councilmember Linda Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Rosaura Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Blair Whitney,
Yes.
Councilmember Jennifer Ruiz,
Yes.
Youth Member Frances Santos.
Yes.
Thank you. And the motion carries. Thanks very
Thank you,
much.
Councilmember.
Thanks, Brian.
So the next item on tonight's agenda will be a presentation regarding Redwood City Livable Streets project. Presentation by Eric Sen, Community Development Engineering from the City of Redwood City. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me well? Can everyone hear me?
I'm sorry?
No, can you point it up towards your,
Yeah,
maybe, there we go.
Is this better?
that's a little better. Yeah.
Okay. So, good evening, council member,
Great.
county staff, and committee members. So, thanks for having me today to do a quick presentation on the Livable Neighborhood Street project. So the first couple slides that you guys probably seen it before, so I'm going to go through it pretty quick. So here's a background of this project. So when Redwood City come in with the development proposals, they did a precise plan, and the city reached a development agreement with the Stanford University, and as a part of the development that they agreed to contribute $1.5 million to the neighborhood street enhancement project, which will, the money will go toward the 3 neighborhoods, which is North Fair Oaks, Redwood Village, and Friendly Anchors, that will potentially affected by the new development by Stanford campus. So this is the overall map that was identified that will have the potential impact by this project. So this one is Redwood, the dark blue is Redwood Village, the lighter green is Friendly Anchor, and the darker green is North Fair Oaks. And the first, after we reached the agreement with the Stanford, we did a series of community outreach. The first round of neighborhood meeting was in February 2017, and the second round of neighborhood meeting was held in April 2017. And all these 2 rounds of neighborhood meeting was held in each of the 3 neighborhoods. And after we complied with all the studies and the community feedbacks, and we did a joint community meetings in August 2017. And after that, the consultants come up with the implementation plan, and the implementation plan was presented to the Redwood City Council and was approved in February 2018, and presented to the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors in March 2018, and also got approved. And in November 2018, we selected a design consultants to move on with the design. And the city and county staff worked with the consultant through the design process. And we designed a total of 14 locations based on a community priority, ranking, cost, opportunity to leverage grant funding, and distribution within the 3 neighborhoods. So, and we also did direct coordination with the residents immediately adjacent to the project and potential impact to the work. Here's the overall map of all the 14 locations that we choose to move on with the design. And the highlighted red are the 9 locations that we will move forward with the constructions. And the reason that we choose the 9 locations was pretty much based on the funding that we have, and also the ability for us to construct it. And also, county will implement the public art in Fair Oaks, but it's not a part of this construction process. The county staff will do their own part of the public art. So here's the all the improvements will happen in North Fair Oaks or adjacent to the North Fair Oaks. So the first one is on Bay Road and 10th Avenue, which we will do a rapid flashing beacons at the crosswalk, median islands, curb ramps. And the second one is on Fair Oak Avenue and 2nd Avenue intersections, which will have high visibility crosswalk, bulb out. And the third one is on 2nd Avenue between Northside Avenue and Spring Street. We will install edge line to visually narrow down the street. And the fourth one is on Spring Street between 5th Avenue and Bay Road, which is also installing edge line. The last one is on Spring Street and Flint Avenue. And we will install bulb outs, high visibility crosswalk, and a curb ramps. So I'm going to show you guys the plan that we implemented. So the first one is on Bay Road and 10th Avenue, and this is TAF, so which we expect to have more students to attend this school after Fair Oak Elementary School is closing after in the next school years. So we will install a median island with a new rapid flashing beacon and new crosswalk and curb ramps at these locations. And the next one is on Fair Oaks Avenue and 2nd Avenue. At this location that we will install the new islands right here. The reason we choose this island is because the county public work staff maintenance vehicles always come through these intersections. They need to be able to maneuver these intersections. That's why we move forward with this design. And additional that we also are gonna install the new curb ramps and the crosswalk right here. And the next one is on 2nd Avenue. We will install a edge line. We will visually narrow down the streets, so we will reduce the vehicle traffic speed. Similarly, will be done on Spring Avenue. So the last one will be on Spring Avenue and Flint Avenue. This one will be more substantial changes. Hoover Middle School is located right here, and we were going to do a curb extensions, new crosswalk, and new ADA ramps right here. And the city advertised the project for constructions, and last month the Redwood City Council awarded the construction contract to the lowest bidder, which is Graytech Incorporations. And the city and contractor will provide additional construction notification to the affected residents, and the construction is expected to start in late July to early August, and the whole construction will take about 19 days. So after we construct everything as planned for this construction process, then we will move forward with the next phase. The next phase of the installment is $750,000, and is due when city issue a certificate of occupancy for the buildings, which takes a new developments to over 1 million square feet. Sorry. The timeline will be based on Stanford, but we expected to receive the applications for phase 2 by the end of this year, and we don't have a specific timeline for when it will be approved and when the design and construction will be done. And then the next phase, the next installment will be used to implement the next group of projects from the implementation plan. So here's more info that everyone can find in our website. So you can also search Redwood City Livable Street, and also here is my contact info. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I can answer any questions.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. Council members, if you have questions, go ahead. Please, Linda, get us started.
Hi, Eric.
Hi.
Remember I was on the phone with you?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me here.
My question, well, actually, before I ask my question, please repeat what you said about the public art piece. Public art, specifically public art at, I believe there were 5 hot spots. We were calling them hot spots in North Fair Oaks, and we defined the hot spots with the Sheriff's Department. That was on the list of priorities.
Correct.
As set forth from all of the community outreach.
Mm-hmm.
So please repeat what you said about that.
I'm sorry that I wasn't clear on that. So the city and the county already reached an agreement that we will put the money to county, and they will implement the public art as a part of their public art process. They have a series of outreach, and they have a list of the potential public art that they can implement in North Fair Oaks. And
okay, I guess then my question then is going to be to the county on that.
Correct.
That was defined as one of the projects to come out of the $245,200 that North Fair Oaks, that was North Fair Oaks' portion of, okay, $245,200 is the North Fair Oaks portion of Phase 1. Phase 1 is $750,000, correct? And it's a total of 1.5 million.
Correct. For the first
Phase 1 would be $750,000
correct.
divided by 3 neighborhoods.
Correct.
Phase 2 would then be $750,000 divided by the same 3 neighborhoods.
Yes.
So my question is, the 3 projects that you have on schedule in North Fair Oaks, they only total up $66,600. My question is, what's going to happen to the balance of the money?
Would you mind to remind me, where did you get the number from? Is it from our original proposal?
From the original proposal.
So that was not very up to date. So when we did the planning process, the planning consultants did an estimate. But after 2 years, everything changes in terms of the construction's price. And also when we went into the construction phase, there was a lot of changes. So there was more expensive than we expected.
So it went from $66,600 to $245,000?
It's actually more than that.
More than the $245,000?
So with the bid that we received for this project, for all the projects in all these locations,
yeah,
combined for I believe is $450,000.
Okay, I don't want to combine. I want to focus on North Fair Oaks.
Yeah, this is in North Fair Oaks.
Okay.
Through the chair, I think I can answer the question.
I just want to know, what is the total amount that's going to be targeted for 1, 2, 3 projects in Phase 1?
That would have to come from the speaker. In terms of your art project, there is $240,000 that are set aside for art in that region that was designated in the contract, which must come to the district, to the county for distribution, and it must be prioritized in that area. So that was separated, and then the rest is being managed by the city of Redwood City.
Correct.
But can you assure us that that portion of the funds that were earmarked for art at the hot spots in North Fair Oaks will be done? Because that's what came out of the prioritizing that the community did.
Yeah, I can assure you that it's going to be spent in that region that was authorized.
Okay, and I guess we can get more specific as we get more involved in it?
I guess we can.
I mean, not Phase 1, but maybe in Phase 2.
No, but the money is earmarked. The county did
I guess I just want to say, and I want to publicly say this, that we spent many, many hours in many meetings with the city, well, with Stanford originally, and then with the city and the Livable Streets consultant. And we came up with the lists of priority projects for all 3 neighborhoods. So I just want to make sure that we stick to the plan and not, and just stick to the plan. Okay, and the plan was, I have a long list of different projects that are spearheaded for North Fair Oaks. So I guess, Eric, if you're going to be the ongoing contact
Correct.
with the city, then
Correct.
Through the chair, I would like to suggest maybe a follow-up type of meeting with the city to see where we're at as we get into Phase 1.
Get into Phase 1?
I just don't, yeah. So, no, you're fine. You're looking at me with a question.
Yeah, so I guess another question.
wanna lose it.
Another question would be for the second phase. Was your team planning on either coming to our council and perhaps having a study session or another meeting to discuss, the particulars of the second phase?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
We will. Yeah.
All right. So I guess we can probably have, a study session and expand on the particulars about those issues there. Thank you very much, Eric. And is there any public comment for this?
No public comment.
Thank you. And moving on to the next item, we will have a presentation regarding green infrastructure for sustainable San Mateo County. Presentation brought to us by Brian Lieberman, resource coordinator specialist for the Office of Sustainability. Welcome.
I just want to lower it. I'm not nearly as tall as he was. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Brianne Lieberman, and I work for the county's Office of Sustainability, and I'm here tonight to present on green infrastructure, which is coming to a street near you. So I'm here to tell you about the improvements that the county will be making in the coming years to community spaces, common areas, and streets throughout North Fair Oaks that will help improve water quality in the bay. There are a few projects that are happening in the near term, but a lot of these projects will be happening long term over the next 20 years. But I wanted to introduce this work tonight so you all were aware of what's happening. So what is green infrastructure and how does it help benefit North Fair Oaks? Well, typically when it rains, that water enters storm drains and pipes, which you can see in the photo on the left here, storm drain. And that water is brought out to the San Francisco Bay or the ocean without getting treated. We call that system gray infrastructure. The problem is that any pollutants that are left on the surface, like motor oil, fertilizers, pesticides, and garbage, are brought directly out to the bay or the ocean without getting treated. That water doesn't go through a wastewater treatment plant. On the other hand, green infrastructure uses special soil and plants to slow the water down, infiltrate the water, and allow it to settle into the ground, and that helps clean the water. And so we call that green infrastructure, and that is what you can see in the photo on the right. Now, you may have seen these areas before and not even known they were green infrastructure because oftentimes they look like regular landscaped areas. There are a lot of different benefits to green infrastructure and a lot of different types of green infrastructure as well. The photo on the left is a green street or a bulb out, that area right there. And so water would enter here or here. And those bulb outs can help slow down traffic because they reduce the width of the road. The photo on the right is what we call a tree well. So it looks like a regular tree, but water actually soaks into the ground underneath the tree. And using trees and other vegetation can help cool hot spots throughout the community. And then these features can also help beautify the community. So there are even more benefits and even more types of green infrastructure. The photo on the left is a rain garden. That's what we call a rain garden. And you can see water would enter through here and soak into this area. And that can help reduce flooding because it gives the water a place to go and to soak into the ground. And then that water, when it soaks into the ground, will replenish our aquifers and increase our water supply. And then the plants will uptake the pollutants and transform them into usable substances, which can help clean our water. The other thing to mention is that trash would also be filtering into the rain garden, and that would require removal through regular maintenance, but it would prevent trash from entering the bay or the ocean. Another type of green infrastructure is this feature on the right, that's pervious pavement, and I really like this one because it looks like regular pavement, but water can actually soak into the ground through these spaces in between the pavers. So why am I here tonight to tell you all about this? It's because the county is currently in the planning stages of installing more green infrastructure throughout our communities. We're in development right now of the county's green infrastructure plan, and the plan will be adopted this fall. And then construction will be long-term, starting this year, 2019, all the way out through 2040. The other thing I wanted to mention is that your community is part of a larger countywide effort, so we're looking not just installing these features throughout North Fair Oaks, but in all unincorporated areas of the county. So some of these projects will be conducted by the county, including our capital projects and public streets and green streets. But a lot of other projects will be working with partners to make these projects stronger. So we'll be partnering with private development and also regional projects. So those are larger scale projects. We'll be working with other cities and even state agencies. And this is just our kind of rough outline right now, our rough strategy. It'll be tweaked in the coming years, but we know that these projects will be stronger if we involve multiple partners. So as part of this work, we're also looking at policy changes. Right now, large new private developments like apartment complexes, shopping centers, and parking lots are already required to install green infrastructure. Through the county's ordinances, we are thinking of expanding the types of projects that would be required to install green infrastructure. And these policy changes would only apply to unincorporated areas. Lastly, I wanted to talk about a couple different opportunities in North Fair Oaks that are more near-term projects. So the first project is the Fair Oaks Avenue at Fair Oaks Elementary School. And this project is for the streets around the school, not the school grounds itself. What we plan to install is a rain garden at Fair Oaks Ave and Oakside Ave, and that's what you can see in the photo here, this green area. So this is what you can expect the site to look like in the future. And the other component of this project is safe routes to school or pedestrian improvements, and those will be installed on a mid-block crossing of Oakside Avenue. And I actually presented this project to this council back in 2017 when it was in its very early stages and we were applying for grant funding for it, so some of you might have heard of it before. We will be starting construction of this project soon, so you'll see traffic cones and blocked off areas, but we'll make sure to finish the project before school starts back up again at the end of the summer. And the last thing to add about this project is that we know that the future use of the school site is still being determined, but we feel that this project would have benefits for any community members, whether they're students or adults, throughout the area. And some of the benefits of this project that it will help clean water, reduce flooding, and cool down temperatures throughout the community. The other project I wanted to mention was Middlefield Road, and there'll be 14 different green infrastructure areas installed between Pacific Ave and Fifth Ave. This project is in its final design stages and construction will start in 2020. And this project will also help reduce flooding, cool down temperatures, and clean water throughout the community. Cool. That's it. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions now, and then if anything comes up in the future, you're welcome to call me or email me.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Rian. If council members have questions, please go ahead. Beatrice?
Yes, my question is, you mentioned mentioned that this was for unincorporated part of the county. And Redwood City proper, does it also have a similar ordinance? And are they also working as hard as we're going to work?
Mhm. So we're actually doing this work in part from a requirement from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And the requirement applies to all the cities and the county. So Redwood City will be conducting a similar effort. They'll have their own specific plan, but similar goals as the county.
And just to tag along that answer, you can see some of the design currently implemented at the new Stanford campus. They have some of these elements already. So
Awesome.
anybody curious about, looking at them, you can take a walk and go there and look around, and you will see some of the designs. They're beautiful.
The other thing I ran out of time, but I wanted to mention was there are rain gardens at the Middlefield Road parking lot. So that's on Middlefield and 2nd Ave, and that was installed in 2018. So you can also check that one out and see the green infrastructure there.
One of the questions I had was, are trees going to be included in some of these, specifically on the upcoming site at the Fair Oaks School?
We won't be having any trees there. That will be a bioretention area, so it'll look more like this. Well, that one has a tree. It won't have trees. That one won't.
Okay.
But there's definitely the potential for trees in other sites.
Is there a particular reason why no trees? Could they still be implemented or made part of it?
At that site, the designs are pretty final, and trees aren't the best to use in the rain gardens or the bioretention areas that I was talking about. But the tree wall that I showed a picture of, that could certainly be implemented in other areas around the school.
Yeah, but since you were also talking about cooling down temperatures, North Fair Oaks does not have any trees. We barely have trees, so that would be an urgent addition to the neighborhood. In terms of both beautification and also cooling down temperatures, that would be a plus.
That's really good feedback, and we can prioritize trees when we look at future projects.
Thank you. The other question I had was, did you say that this is going to affect the plan that was already finalized for the Middlefield Road renovation?
Middlefield Road includes several different green infrastructure areas, actually. Those are in the designs right now.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Beatrice.
Have you approached any of the businesses with the idea of maybe in front of their business, on the side of their business, to incorporate some of these green spaces?
The county is thinking about that idea, and we are thinking about formalizing that through our policy, but we're kind of in the initial stages of that right now. But we would love to work and partner with the businesses and help cost share projects as well, so they can improve the street frontage in front of the businesses. Thank you.
Brianne, the Middlefield Road came up with regarding Middlefield Road redesign. There was a plan in place regarding the trees. So is this going to be worked into those areas? I think you mentioned 14 different sites.
There's 14.
Is that in correlation with the trees?
I'd have to double check, and
there was a whole big piece about the trees.
I think the 14 different areas are a combination of rain gardens and then the tree wells that I showed you a picture of. But I can double check and see if it's both of those elements.
And rain garden would be the ground? Oh, like the.
Let me show you a good picture. This is what the rain garden would look like. So it would have vegetation.
Okay. Okay. I'm just curious how one is going to be working with the other.
Yeah, I think I'll double check, but I think some of the green infrastructure areas on Middlefield will be the trees. And then I imagine there will be additional trees that aren't treating stormwater. They're just regular trees.
Got it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Blair.
Yeah, I was at the parking lot on Middlefield when they had the mural dedication. I actually walked over and I looked at the rain garden, and it was noteworthy and progressive. I said, that's really cool.
Yeah.
They did a rain garden.
Awesome.
I'm glad that it's going to be included in more places. And down the road, if they ever do something with the Dumbarton corridor and do like a linear park and a rails and trails kind of thing, yeah, it's a great way to highlight stuff. I've seen the permeous pavement before, even like driveways where they got like moss and a weird paving thing. Are we doing that anywhere in any of these plans? Because it's nice to showcase for homeowners that you can actually turn your driveway into a permeable surface.
I don't think that's included in the Middlefield Road improvements, and we're not using that at Fair Oaks Elementary School. But in the future, like I was saying, these projects will be installed over the next 20 years, so we would love to use permeable pavement in some of those.
At least some spot to highlight the tech.
Definitely.
And another question related to that. So the previous pavement would be only for sidewalks or pedestrian areas, or also for vehicular traffic?
It's usually used in more of the sidewalks or parking spaces, actually, or parking lots. It's not typically used for vehicular traffic, but it has been done in the Bay Area before. I think the city of Berkeley has just a regular travel lane that's permeable pavement, and it seems to be holding up pretty well. But that's not as common.
Thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, if there are any public comment or questions?
No public comment.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much for your presentation, Brianne.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to reports. If we have a supervisor's report.
There's no supervisor's report this morning.
Okay.
This evening.
Thank you. A county manager's report.
We do have a report. In terms of the sheriff's office, they are working in collaboration with Menlo Fire as we approach the 4th of July. They've been doing outreach. You've probably seen it in the community regarding illegal discharge of firearms and the enforcement that will be taking place next week for anyone caught discharging firearms over the holidays. The Department of Public Works has completed the irrigation in the middle of Fitz Street under the underpass, and they've also replanted the middle section of Fifth Avenue. They have added 2 men crews to the area. I believe in May they started. You probably see more activity in the area. They've been doing vegetation management and cleanup in the area. We've also continued with the graffiti abatement continues with the summer in full bloom. We have more graffiti with the kids out of school, so we've got just more activity. And that concludes our report.
Thank you very much. If we have any council members' reports, please go ahead. Go ahead, Beatrice.
Yes. I participated with Blair in the Be Seen Keeping It Clean, which was held on Saturday, June 1st. We had a good crowd. But one thing that we did notice was that this is the second year that the cleanup, it happens right after a general streets cleaning, sweeping week. And so we noticed it more this time, is that the hot spots that we kind of normally find, we didn't really find them because the streets had just been cleaned the week before. So maybe going forward, I had a brief conversation with Lillian that maybe choosing a different month, because originally we had started in April. And then, now it's wound up at the first Saturday of June. So maybe strategizing for another maybe date. because we do get a lot of great volunteers that really, really want to help us pick up garbage. And so as we walk, we notice things that are cleaner, which is good, but maybe we need to strategize to see if there's maybe other hotspots that we're missing for that particular event. And then I assisted a Karen-sponsored on the human trafficking awareness workshop that was held on June 10th here at Sport House. It was very interesting. It was a testimony from two particular women who were caught up in this whole trauma, and it was their life story, but it shed great information on this ongoing problem, and also telling those of us who were there was probably 30 of us that were there, just, signs, what to look for as we now enter summer and we see youth out and about, and how we, just to kind of keep our eyes open. So that's it.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Blair.
At the retreat, I made a commitment to draft a newsletter, and I picked a date out of the air. I think I said July 15th. And our next workshop is, we have the study session. I'm going to revise my July 15th date to the day of the study session. I'll just bring in what I got and let the group decide, because I don't want to send anything out unilaterally.
Okay. Thank you, Blair. So we'll try to make space for discussion on that particular issue about the possible newsletter. It should be that
Thursday
date.
before.
That's the regular meeting.
No, I think it's July.
Through the chair, yes, I apologize. For this July study session, it'll be July 18th.
Correct, yeah, the 18th.
So, I'm sorry, so you're going to present a draft?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of the newsletter, yeah. And if there are no other council member reports, then we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.